The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 85.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneur's Library. Today we have Pamela Slim, author of Body of Work, Finding the Thread That Ties Your Story Together. Welcome, Pamela, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Thanks so much for having me.
Will you take just a moment to introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you personally?
Sure. I am a speaker and a writer and a business coach and a very happy mom. And I have really spent time working in just about every work mode that you can possibly imagine. So spent time as an employee, as a nonprofit professional, as a volunteer executive director, as a consultant, as an independent business coach, and really find great joy and interest in figuring out how people express themselves through their work.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Now let's jump right into your book, Body of Work, which was just made available, I could say, for purchase on December 31st, 2013. So still not that long ago, under a year. And Pamela, we're going to move quickly, but here's some of the top questions that our listener/reader would love to get answered. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing Body of Work?
My inspiration really came from the work that I was doing specifically for about 9 years, which was working with people who were in corporate jobs that wanted to leave and start a business. My first book was Escape from Cubicle Nation. And so that target audience were really people who clearly wanted to leave corporate life for something new. But operating specifically in the startup space for 9 years, I began to see certain trends and certain gaps and things that were missing from the way in which we were talking about a framework for understanding the new world of work. As I said in my introduction, I've worked in many different work modes in all size companies. For the 10 years before I started coaching people to start businesses, I was a consultant to large corporations. So a couple things that I was noticing, one of them was that we in the entrepreneur space tend to get very excited and believe that starting a business is the only way to work. And we worship the work mode of working for ourselves and say that the only way you can be free and creative is to work for yourself. And where I love working for myself, and I have for 18 years, and many of my clients do, it is not the be all end all. And I begin to get a little frustrated and frankly concerned that we were beginning to worship a work mode as opposed to really focusing on what are all the different ways that we can create great things and add value through work. And for some people, that's going to be showing up as an entrepreneur. And for other people, that would be working with an organization or for an organization. So I wanted to write something that would also be accessible for people who were working in universities or in the military or in organizations where they still could have some of the benefits of looking at work the way that we often do as entrepreneurs, which is really understanding ourselves, how we're wired, really thinking about the market and opportunity, wanting to focus on our strengths. And so that was one main driver, is wanting to expand the conversation that I had been having for a long time with entrepreneurs and let certain folks know that if they tried entrepreneurship and it didn't work, that in no way, shape, or form was it a failure to go back and work for somebody else. That could be a totally fantastic decision if that is a work mode that is more fitting for what you need at that time in your life. So that was really one main driver. Second driver was that I felt that in the new world of work, where there just was so much uncertainty, especially post the economic downturn in 2008, that everybody was kind of grasping for ways that we could understand how to create a significant career path. And all the other models that we were looking for, either the model of, quitting is the only alternative, which didn't seem to work, or stay in one company and work, focus on delivering value to the company, don't do anything on the outside, was also not effective, because that could be very dangerous because companies go through so much transition and lay people off, and we all need to be thinking differently. So I was really searching for a framework that could apply to all of us, that would be a way that we could feel some internal security against all the uncertainty in the outside environment, but would also allow us to really be creating meaningful things. And so that was really the driver behind writing Body of Work.
So, Pam, you already started to cover our second question a little bit, and maybe you can just go into further depth. But this next question is, what makes your book different from others regarding a similar topic or the same topic?
Yeah, I think on one hand, it really is a different way of looking at work. And I didn't want, I am the kind of coach, I think, and just person in general, where I feel fiercely passionate about not being totally prescriptive, right? Saying that this is the only way you can grow a business, or this is the only way you can be successful, or if you want to blog, these are the ways you have to do it. I think I just get allergic to that. That's a little bit of my inner rebel, because I believe so strongly that people really need to be designing a life and business and a work situation that fits for them and their unique situation. So I think it's easy to be prescriptive sometimes and tell people what to do. I didn't want to do that with this book, and I think that's one way that it sets it apart. And the other thing I think is different is that for a lot of the entrepreneurs I've talked to and worked with around the content of the book, it's very, very applicable to how it is that you think about defining your brand and finding your market. And the skills that you learn in the book are very applicable for an entrepreneur, but they're also very relevant to people in other work modes. And I find that we tend to, separate books to just be focused in one market or the other. And this is something that really builds a bridge.
Based on the format that you use to write this book, how do you suggest the reader engage with it? Is this something that they can jump in and cherry pick information, or is this really one that they should start from the beginning and read all the way through?
What I suggest, I've actually gotten quite a few questions about that, because the way I did structure the book was that one piece does build on the next. And so I wrote it also to have real stories of real people who are really demonstrating some of the key skills that I talk about in Body of Work. So I wanted to make it interesting to read and engaging and conceptually understandable. That's why a lot of people, I think, tend to read it all the way through first, just to understand how the pieces fit together, because it is a framework. It is a way of looking at the world of work that may not make too much sense if you jump in the middle of it, if you don't have the initial pieces. But at the end of each chapter, there are specific exercises that you can do. And a lot of people, were jumping in immediately and doing all the exercises. And for them, I said, you know what, you might just want to read through it first and get an idea of how the different pieces flow. For example, if you are a business owner where you've been in business for a long time, and maybe you are really clear about your brand story, maybe you do have your business designed in a way that's really fitting for you, but you find that you really want to focus more on collaboration, or you don't feel so strong about the way that you're telling your story through social media or through speaking and so forth. So that's the case where you could go back and maybe just do the exercises from certain of the chapters that are related to the particular parts that you want to work on.
Very good. Now that we know the purpose of the book, let's take a deep dive into the content. This is where I'm going to hand over the mic for the next 5 to 10 minutes, and really what we're looking to do is lay out from beginning to end what the reader can expect from picking up your book.
Yeah, so the first chapter really lays out the overall concept of body of work. What is it? And my premise is that our body of work is everything that we create, contribute, affect, and impact throughout the course of our lives. So that includes tangible things like books and companies that we build and apps or software code, whatever are the things that we produce through our work. But it also includes the intangible things like love, community, hope, relationships, right? The way that you affect the world by the way that you walk through the world and what you consciously choose to do. So every chapter has, a key story about that. The lead chapter is the story of my dad, who's an amazing person, a really talented photographer and lifetime dedicated volunteer, who has really had a huge impact on me. So that really sets the tone for, what is body of work? What does it mean? Why is it important in the new world of work? And then we begin to dive in piece by piece to looking at what you can examine in order to really build the body of work that's going to be very personally meaningful and significant and have a good impact in the world. So the first piece of that is define your roots, which is identifying your values, your beliefs, the problems that you want to solve. A lot of people that I've worked with in the past have really banged their head against the wall, searching for one singular life purpose. And I don't believe that most people tend to view life that way. Some people do, and they know they have one purpose in life. But much more common is that people have many different routes, many different interests, problems that they want to solve at different points in their life. So we go through a process of really defining for you what are those things that are going to drive your work forward, that really you can hold on to during the inevitable winds of creative strife. The second piece is name your ingredients, where you go into really understanding specifically what are your skills and your strengths and your experiences. A lot of us have many, many different parts of our life experience that we don't account for when we are doing things like building a business. I'm a martial artist, a longtime martial artist. I'm a mom. I have specific background in training and development and career development and business. Each of these are different ingredients that I could choose to use in interesting ways as I think about the kinds of products and services that I'm offering in my business. I can also use those as I am really describing what it is that I do to the world in a more interesting way than maybe just listing off bullets on a resume about where I got educated or, how many years that I've been in business. So taking a deep assessment of all of your ingredients that you can use moving forward is the focus of Name Your Ingredients. And then we go in and we explore different work modes. And by work mode, I mean, are you working as a freelancer versus a contractor, or a full-time entrepreneur, or an employee, or a nonprofit professional, or an internet personality? We have all these new interesting work modes that are coming up based on the new world of work. And there are some people who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars posting YouTube videos on everything from how to put on makeup to breaking down the latest video games, like Toby Turner, who my 9-year-old son loves to follow. And so you want to think about, based on where you are in this stage of your life or your business, what is the work mode that's going to fit best for you? And even if you really are committed to entrepreneurship, there are ways that you can explore the specific way that you want to work. Maybe you really want to expand your business. You want to hire employees. You want to work with partners in a new way. And you want to think through what are all the different opportunities and different work modes. That moves us into create and innovate, which is, to me, the heart of body of work, because I think that we really realize our potential, we contribute the most when we're creating specific projects. And so, of course, if you think in the context of body of work, your body of work is everything that you've created throughout the course of your life. And so you want to be conscious and aware of what are you creating. A very, very common thing for entrepreneurs, understandably, is to have your back up against a wall. You need to make some money, and you say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to launch this product. I'm going to do this service. I'm going to chase this opportunity. We've all been there. I totally understand it. But you really want to be conscious about, why are you creating something? How does it specifically leverage your strengths? How is it going to create stability and security in your business in the long run? And I think if we both are conscious about choosing specifically the kinds of projects to move our businesses forward is a very important part. And then we also just need to get comfortable with the skill of creating, because that is one thing you need to do for anybody who's a new entrepreneur. You can't let something sit in committee for months and months. You need to have an idea, you need to conceptualize it, and execute it and get it out there. That's really your lifeblood as an entrepreneur. So that really explores how it is that we create and innovate, developing the skill of creating, and also being very conscious about creating things that we feel passionately are going to make the kind of change we want to see in the world. I've met many, many very successful entrepreneurs in my life who, frankly, were not the happiest people. And I think in some ways is because they had a very limited view of what they were creating. They might have just chased the financial return. They didn't think specifically about who they wanted to work with. And so you can really have a huge positive impact in your life if you're conscious about that in your planning. The next section is what I call surf the fear, because if there's one thing I know from over 20 years of working with people around their work lives, is that any kind of change and transition, any kind of significant creative work that you're doing involves fear, doubt, and uncertainty. And I do not believe that we need to ignore fear or crush fear or dominate fear. I think we need to learn how to harness the positive components of fear. And that gave me the surfing metaphor, right? Learn how to surf it. It's going to be there. It's part of how it is that we're wired as human beings. We need to understand sometimes the messages that fear is telling us, because as an entrepreneur, sometimes you can be afraid of something for very good reason. Maybe it's too big of a risk. Maybe you're not very prepared. Maybe you need to do specific things in order to feel confident in executing your plan. And that is not bad. What becomes overwhelming is if you just try to push fear back, or you beat yourself up for feeling fear, you don't listen to the lessons it's trying to tell you, and you don't find productive ways of walking through it. And so that's really what I aim to do in the Surf the Fear chapter, is to help you develop the skill of working with fear as an ally and as something that won't stop you from creating the kind of work that you want to create. The next chapter is on collaborate, and this is a skill I think that is so useful and so important. It covers everything from collaborating with our market, so with our clients and customers. There's, especially with social media, we really need to be much more engaged and involved with people in our business, I think, than we ever have in the past. And it's also about being very specific about how are you collaborating with people in order to strengthen yourself, develop better work, expand your markets, all these things that are important to you as an entrepreneur, as a professional. And this, again, is a skill for knowing how to identify the qualities of people who you want to work with, identify the gaps in your skill set, and then to think about specific strategies you can use in order to be collaborating with people. The next to the last section is on your definition of success. And this is where I have, again, seen many people fall into unhappiness, which is where they are not conscious about what truly defines success for them in their life and their business. In my own example, as I said before, I'm a proud mom. I have 2 kids, aged 7 and 9. I have a bonus son who's 28. And I really want always to make a priority to have time in my life to spend with my kids. I want to be a present and active parent. And that means that I'm going to make certain decisions in my business that allow me to have that time, because money is not the only metric that I use for my business. Another thing that's very important to me is true impact. And I want to be supporting and building community with the people who I work with. And that's a very important value to me. And that means that I am very conscious about who I work with, how I do that work. It's why I'm not the kind of person that's going to tell you that there are 10 steps only to growing a business, and this is what you have to do if you want to be successful, because I want to build in self-reliance, empowerment. I want you to be owning your choices. And I know that each one of you are going to have a very different definition of success. Some of you want to build the next billion-dollar company, and that's fantastic. As long as it is aligned with really how it is that you want your life to look, not just after you do that, but while you are doing it. So that chapter really focuses on how you can create a definition of success that works for you and makes you happy while you're building it. And the final chapter is about sharing your story, which is once you do have this very clear understanding about what is the work that you want to do, your unique strengths, your purpose, why you're doing the work, who you want to collaborate with, you have a strong, consistent story. And I think of all the skills that we need in the 21st century, storytelling is a hugely important one, because if we're wanting to raise funds on Kickstarter, if we have a sales letter, we're trying to sell a product, if we're standing on stage, delivering a presentation, if we're having a conversation with a prospective client on the phone, everything about results is tied to the quality of our story. Now, by story, I don't mean making something up that's not true. I mean talking about our business and about ourselves in such a way that connects with people, that is authentic, but it's also very carefully thought out and specific. One thing that I find with many entrepreneurs who have many interests is they have a hard time explaining exactly who they are and what they do. And that's really your job. You need to figure out a way to take all of your diverse ingredients and your offerings and communicate it in such a way that people can clearly understand what you do. depending upon whom you're talking to, you may tell your story a little bit of a different way. So that's really the final chapter, and that's the way that body of work is structured.
You did a fantastic job of summarizing it. I think it was very crisp and clear. And this next question I feel like is somewhat mean when we ask it. And that's that you just did a perfect job of giving us the bird's eye view. And now I'm really asking you to take it almost to the next level. And that's that if the reader was only able to take out one principle or action item or concept out of your entire book, what would you want that to be?
Yeah, no, it's not a mean question. I think for me, as I said before, the probably the heart of the book for me is create and innovate, and it's the chapter that I feel the most strongly about, that where we are able to clearly define, what it is that we want to create and get really good at the process of creating. That's the skill that's going to be the most important for you as an entrepreneur. And then it's followed up as a close second, if I can,
Yeah,
by
definitely.
sharing your story, right? It's, as I said, some people already have done a lot of introspection. They're clear as to what their unique strengths are. But until you get really clear to what you're creating, like that's where everything happens, right? That's where innovation happens. That's where personal transformation happens. That's where you test your ideas and assumptions. And so to me, if you only were to read one chapter, that probably would be the one I'd encourage you to read.
Very good. And Pam, do you have a favorite quote from your book, either one that you wrote that you love or one that's maybe resonated with the folks that have already read it?
Let me pull the one, not surprisingly, that's one of my favorites from chapter 3. I actually started each chapter with a quote because it was one of my favorite things. So let me just find that. Well, no, actually, maybe I'll use the one from Khalil Gibran from chapter 4 about choose your work mode, which is, but I say to you that when you work, you fulfill a part of Earth's furthest dream assigned to you when that dream was born. And in keeping yourself with labor, you are in truth loving life. And to love life through labor is to be intimate with life's inmost secret. That book, The Prophet, is one of my very favorite books of all time. And what I love about it is it really does reflect to me what is the sacredness of work, is that really is the way that we express ourselves. And work is joy. No offense whatsoever to my friend Tim Ferriss, who wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. But my purpose in life is not to avoid work. It's to be immersed in work that is very relevant and significant because I love working and I love creating.
No, that's excellent. And for those that want to write that down, they can go to the show notes page at the elpodcast.com and grab that and some other resources there, because that's sometimes when you say a quote, it's almost like you need to stop and think about it. And for the average person that's either, on a treadmill or out running or on their way home right now, they're trying to get their mind around that actual quote so they can go on and find out more. But my next question is, and I love asking authors this because I think that very few. I think out of we're on our 85th interview, and I think we've only had like one or two authors say, I don't do a whole lot of reading. So this next question is, your book is will create paradigm shifts, already has, and will impact people. What's a book that you've read that really impacted your life that you'd share with our audience?
I love Nancy Duarte's book, Resonate. And I love Nancy Duarte. She's one of my High Council of Jedi Knight members and a dear friend and just a brilliant human being. And I love the way that she breaks down storytelling. In her case, she runs a firm, Duarte, that helps people to design really effective presentations. But she really dives into how it is that you can structure a story in such a way that it really resonates with audiences. And again, I can't imagine anybody from any work mode or any industry that doesn't need to tell stories as part of what you do, in order to get business across. And I just think she does a masterful job, and I really love that book. I refer to it in Body of Work too, not surprising.
That's a great recommendation. Yeah, what entrepreneur can't utilize that? So that's fantastic. Pamela, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to get more information on you and your book, Body of Work?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me is to go to PamelaSlim.com And there you can see up in the right-hand corner my social handles. So for LinkedIn or Facebook, Twitter, whatever your preferred means of staying connected. And then I also always encourage you to join my mailing list, which is on the bottom right-hand corner. And I share writing. I'm expanding on ideas and concepts from body of work, share resources, input, tools. And then because I'm on the road quite a bit speaking or doing workshops, I can also let you know when I might be in your part of town.
Perfect. Pam, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your creation, your book with us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again for joining us today on the Entrepreneur's Library. If you want more information on Pamela, or if you'd like more information or the resources from what she's talking about, that'll be at the elpodcast.com. And even the resource for her book, Body of Work, will be there as well.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.